He's headed to J.W. Hall's up there in that Hopewell Shopping Center next to Coons Market, which she is one of our satisfied customers. And don't forget, Coons Market Black and Gold Sunday Show will be at Pirate Fest this week. Greg Dialis and I, Dan Zangrilli tomorrow in the noon hour, 93.7 The Fan all weekend. So it's just, well, time to start thinking about baseball. You know, I was with Stevie Higgins up at the Larry Bruno Foundation, Bob Middleman, Enelow Shoes, always supporting local baseball, youth baseball, some of the great championship teams, WPIL, 61, mid-70s. Baseball in Beaver Falls has a rich history, does it not?
It's got a great history. You can go back into the 30s. Do you remember an outfielder named Tom Bernansky that played for the Cardinals and the
I do not.
Angels back in the 70s? Well, his father was from Beaver Falls, and he played baseball and football in here and was an All-American at Duke. I don't know if they've got anything up there about him, but they should. You know, there's all these people, they just have connections in Beaver Falls. And Hal McLean was phenomenal here. Tommy Kirkpatrick. They had a top 10 of pitchers in Beaver Falls, 5 lefties and 5 righties. And Bob Garvin, a good friend of mine from the 68 Beaver Falls team that played for Geneva, also was there. Mm-hmm. They've had a ton of good pitchers from here. Lately, it's been bad, but
you know,
it'll come back someday.
Used to love to talk baseball with Bobby McDaniel.
Bobby's great.
I love Bobby. I love the family, loved his dad, loved talking baseball, but a rich history. And Hal McLean, saw him as a kid. I hope someday to get to shake his hand. I really wanted to do a video with him, but some people just don't want to get on camera, and I respect that. But he was a huge, huge part of my youth growing up. Loved Hal McLean. Now, I want to talk about the University of Pittsburgh. The Panthers, obviously college football national championship game. We're going to talk about it. I was reading through some information about how many national championships these two schools have, Heisman Trophy winners, winning percentage, this and that. I just want to be in the conversation again with the University of Pittsburgh, because really the last 2 days somehow I ended up dressing in blue and gold. Don't know how I did it. Got up today, started making plans for my broadcast day. I did it again. So there must be something going on up here, because my heart is always thinking about the University of Pittsburgh Panthers. Coming up on the 50th anniversary since the national championship team, name, image, and likeness, no matter what it takes, how do we get back, not to the national championship game, but into the conversation of maybe being in a football playoff? How and is it possible that that could happen again?
Well, the first thing you have to win the
ACC. Right.
You got to win that first, and you can't get lucky. You know, teams get hot. They can roll right through the playoffs. It's possible.
Do you see a big difference in the top level teams in the ACC compared to Pitt? And if so, what's it going to take to get back in that conversation?
Well, I'll tell you what. I thought we were there a couple years ago because, you know, we played Clemson and we were as fast as they were. It was always speed, as far as I'm concerned, and it looked like we were there. But the last couple of years, seems like we've lost a step or two.
Do we have the quarterback?
I don't know. The kid that played last year, Holstein, got all beat up. It's hard to say. The offensive line got injured early, and it was a disaster.
Narduzzi's got the long-term contract, so he's not going anywhere. But is he the guy to lead this football team back to that type of prominence that we would love to revisit one more time in our lifetime?
I really can't say. I don't know that it has to be the coach. You know, if you've got a great quarterback, you can win.
Well, you know who was a great quarterback coach, who's a dear friend of yours, and you actually got him on the local radio station. He's always been good to me. I can't speak enough good things about. Walt Harris was an exceptional offensive-minded coach and a great quarterback coach who could step right now in college football as a quarterback, offensive coordinator, maybe even a head coach in the right circumstance. He could go to the pros. He could help the Steelers quarterback situation. He is a legendary quarterback coach.
You're reading my mind. I was just thinking about that with the Steelers and with the Justin Fields, who needs a quarterback coach desperately.
This is why he's Bob Middleman. This is why I come here after a long day. Mike McCarthy becomes your offensive coordinator. You bring in Walt as your quarterback coach. You get Salah maybe to be your defensive coordinator. And Tomlin actually just lets them do what they're supposed to do. And look, you can't get rid of Justin Fields. You're not. I even heard Aaron Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh. Not going to happen. Be nice, but it's not. I still think he has a little juice left. But once you have an Achilles injury, look, you're never the same. I don't care who you are. But I truly believe, Bobby, that Justin Fields gives us the best chance to get a franchise quarterback who has all the intangibles that all these quarterbacks that we're talking about this weekend, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, all of these quarterbacks we're talking about this weekend, Patrick Mahomes, I truly believe Justin Fields has that kind of ability. C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State, like Justin, I really think he's got the ability. And I think Arthur Smith, from what everybody is saying, actually wanted to use him but didn't get the chance.
I think Justin Fields may have been ruined by his 2 years in Chicago. I hope not.
Think about it.
Mitch
Trubisky. So maybe Chicago's going to get a reprieve by getting the right people in there with Caleb Williams, because they had two really big-time quarterbacks coming into the professional ranks from college, right?
Right, but we'll see who gets the coaching job and the GM job.
Who do you like Monday night in this national championship game in in Atlanta?
I'll tell you, I loved Ohio State the whole time coming through. You know, they just looked like they had it, but Texas kind of neutralized them, and the final score is a little misleading there, because they picked that ball up and ran it back a gazillion yards for a touchdown to make it 24, I think. What was it, 24-14?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what the final was?
By the way, you see these pony shoes here?
I do.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. Today is the birthday of my childhood hero. As much as I love Namath, Muhammad Ali was everything to me. Still is to this day. One of the saddest days of my life, and he was a great fighter from eastern Pennsylvania who always wore pony, was Larry Holmes, who defeated Muhammad Ali when he had the mustache, and he was like 1981. Love Larry Holmes, but every time I see pony, I love the brand, but I think about the great Larry Holmes, who I believe had the best left jab in the history of the heavyweight
Well, they're
division.
trying to make a comeback there, and I ordered a pair of size 13s for myself there.
Get me a pair.
I will.
Listen to me. And I'm really biased about this. I've been telling anybody that'll listen, I'm not getting paid for this. I buy my stuff. I just like hanging out with this guy. But forget about his knowledge in sports. This is a store that has something for everyone. And in the middle of winter, if you're a person that works outside, Carhartt, all the things you could ever imagine, but the shoes, the apparel, the hats, the pricing is second to none. The selection is stupendous. And here's a guy who has walked the walk. You know, I told Steve Higgins this, and it's a fact. You realize that Joe Namath probably bought his first pair of, not hand-me-down tennis shoes, but actual tennis shoes. I don't know if it was Converse or Keds or whatever it was. Joe Namath, who grew up just down the street, probably bought all of his shoes, even his first Holy Communion shoes at Enelow Shoes.
He might have, because his mother shopped in here.
Think about it,
Yes,
though.
she did.
I mean, it's when you think about, 54, you realize how many years your family has been in the business. And one of the things that I remember from the Zelkowitz family, Sandy Zell, who he and his brother for years had the athlete's foot at Fox Chapel at the mall there, he said, shoes are something you're born into. This business, it takes more than just lacing up someone's sneakers. You really have to embrace it and know it, because if your feet hurt, life ain't so good. But you really are a craftsman at this. You and your wife actually know this business. It's not just about slipping a pair of shoes on someone.
You know, I even used to do shoe repair. When I was very young, a shoemaker was right down the street here, and women always used to knock the taps off their shoes, and I was always down at the shoemaker's, and I was supposed to be there 10 minutes. I'd be there 2 hours just watching them work.
Oh, nothing quite like it. It's a
said,
skill set.
When I was about 28, I said, you know, I can do this myself. I asked one of my reps, any of these old guys going out of business, and I drove to Pottsville, PA, in a rent-a-truck, in a stick, which I didn't even know how to drive a stick. I did fine until I got into
How
downtown.
old were you, Bob?
28.
Always trying to turn a buck, making it work. And listen, he could have since retired, but he loves doing this. I love coming here. It just brings back such joy of my childhood. But it's still here today. And if you've got teenagers and you've got grandchildren and they want to dress and be cool like everyone wants to be at that age and save a whole lot of money and buy it from an expert, this is the guy. So who are you picking Monday night?
I'm going to pick Ohio State.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to blow them away.
No, I don't either.
I think Notre Dame showed me they were a lot better than I thought they were, but I don't think the quarterback's that good, at least not at that level.
Well, now here's another good connection for you. So Lou Holtz from East Liverpool. Last time they won the national championship. Do you realize that another guy from East Liverpool coached the basketball team that won the state title, that Oscar Jackson and Gooseby probably got their Converse tennis shoes
Frank Chan.
here At Enelow Shoes. So it's
Frank
all,
Shannon, he's still around.
it's all
I just saw a picture of him. I think he's about 93 now.
yeah.
I just saw a picture with him with Oscar Jackson on Facebook a couple of weeks ago when Oscar was in town.
Oscar Jackson was in town. No one called me.
No one called me.
Listen, I saw him in that. I saw Gooseby in that CYO game, battling out with Tilt Willis over there at Rochester. Man, it was a big game. Now the pros coming up. I'm going to be working late into the night, doing all that good stuff from my home studio. Going to be on KDK, and of course those Coons Market sports reports. And we've got that Coons Market for you. Don't forget. Right here in Hopewell, Power Bowser, Friday night basketball tonight. Dom DeCiccio was on with me the other day. He's from Thomas Jefferson. And Joe Ehrman from Peters Township. Don't forget that Power Bowser, that dealership up there in Chippewa. That game is coming up shortly on KDK Radio. So good time of year, lots of history, but the divisional round matchups and then, of course, the conference championships and the big game. Before I go through all these games, wouldn't you agree, though, the reason I came to see Steve Higgins today, it was Super Bowl III because of that guy from Beaver Falls, not Broadway, but Beaver Falls, Joe Namath. It changed the course of the NFL.
It certainly did. They were, what, 16.5-point underdogs? Was that?
Yeah,
was that,
18 and a half, cleose enough.
Whatever. But it was unheard of. There was no way the Jets were going to beat them, but yet they did. In fact, Earl Morrall Unitas was hurt. Earl Morrall had just cruised through that whole year, but then they brought in an injured Johnny to try and bring it back, but it didn't work.
Didn't work. You know, I forgot, but Stevie, who's such a walking everything when it comes to sports, Namath didn't throw a touchdown pass in that game.
Didn't he? What was it, Matt Snell?
Matt Snell, and Boozer, and all these other guys, they were just ground and pound. And, you know, in fact, I guess we wanted him to open it up a little bit, and he says, hey, they haven't stopped us running the football. We're going to keep running the football. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
so
it was actually a pretty boring game.
It was. But, man, he won. Can you imagine what Beaver Falls was like that night?
No, I couldn't. I was too young, but if I'd have been a couple years older, I'd have been right in the middle of it.
Listen, be up there at the Corner Tavern, down there at the Rainbow Room, hanging out, man. Oh, goodness gracious, good stuff. All right, now let's talk NFL. You got the Texans and KC. Who do you like?
KC.
Yeah, it's
No
hard.
doubt about
How
it.
do
I don't think, what's his name? Stroud's going to throw a couple interceptions and turn that around.
Washington, those Commanders, and Detroit Lions.
That's a tough one.
Jaden Daniels is doing some pretty exciting things.
He looks really good. And, you know, Detroit's luck's going to run out. You know, those fourth and whatevers every time. It's going to come back and bite
Don't
him.
do it, the coach.
It's going to come back and bite him in the butt.
Yeah, don't do it. There's a lot of injuries on that football team, too. But they've got some really talented, skilled runners as far as in the backfield. Montgomery's healthy again.
Yeah, he's back again.
Yeah. All right, so coming up Sunday, man, it's really going to be good stuff. You got the Rams and Eagles, and it's hard to go against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. And their defense, even without Aaron Donald, locking people down, and they're really seeming to hit their stride now. But they've got Saquon Barkley. This game is really going to depend on how good Jalen Hurts is. Everything is on his shoulders.
He can't afford to get hurt.
No.
And they've got to be able to run the football. Yeah, I think I just read a thing the other day when he's thrown more than 25 passes in a game, they're 3-4. So Saquon's got to have another 200-plus yard day. They've got a phenomenal offensive line, even missing the center from last year. They're tough.
But don't forget number 27 in your Philadelphia Eagles program. The night Howard Cosell said, where'd you get that name, Poe James? He says, because we were Poe. Listen, I was so excited the night that Poe James was on Monday Night Football. That's when Monday Night Football was a spectacle.
It was really cool.
You couldn't get a seat at a bar. I mean, you forget it. You were standing. I mean, everybody went to their favorite watering hole to watch Monday Night Football. And Dandy Don, Frank Gifford, and Howard Cosell. Good stuff.
Who was the first guy on Monday Night Football?
Oh, no, it wasn't Bob Prince. He did
Keith
baseball.
Jackson.
Keith Jackson, rumbling and stumbling.
I love that guy. He was my favorite.
Well, why do you love college football so much? I mean, I'd Pitt, obviously, but you love college
It's mostly Pitt. But I just, you know what, I've always been a Steeler fan, and I want to know who's going to get drafted here and there. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys that watch a whole bunch more college football than me, but, you know, now my grandson's getting into it, and I just love talking football. He knows more. I told him and my son the other day, I said, you know, I remember I used to watch football with my dad, and he knew everything, and then before I knew it, I knew more than him. Well, right now, you guys know more than me.
They're coming, man.
Oh, no. I said, no, you guys got me passed up.
Here's what really just made me smile watching this best of ever type of thing the other day. college football running backs. You know who they chose as the greatest college football?
I hope it was Dorsett.
The greatest college football running back in the history of college football, Tony Dorsett or Dorsett from Hopewell, Pennsylvania.
There have been guys that ran for more yards, but I just never saw anyone as smooth as him, and he could just
hit the hole,
just miss that hit. You know, he never got clobbered like that.
Come through, man, with that ball. It's just lightning, man. And the last game, of course, is the marquee matchup. And as I've been saying, the sad thing, whoever loses this game, they're going to be questioning if they can win the big game. Lamar Jackson especially, if here was ever a time he's got to win it, now's the time. But because of Jim Kelly and Marv Levy and the great history of the Buffalo fans, I'm hoping the Bills get this one.
Well, I'm hoping they win it too. But, you know,
Lamar's great.
The one thing you've got to think about, though, is the last game they won and looked so good was against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Can they duplicate that with a guy running for 299 yards again? I don't think so.
What happens to the Steelers, man? We've had success. There's so many teams that would love to have the success, but they've got to find a way to get that quarterback. Hopefully it's Fields, but they've got to get away. They've got to find a way to get into the postseason and actually win, Bob.
They've got to get somebody to take a M80 and shove it up there behind and light it.
Make them get excited.
They're not.
You think Najee's coming back?
No. Because somebody got $9 million last year, one of the last signings in the back, and the Steelers only had to pay him $5 million. And when he comes in to negotiate, if he does, the agent's going to say, well, so-and-so got $9 million, and Najee got 300 more yards than him. And the Steelers don't look at it that way. They look at a guy that got half the carries, and they'll pay him half the going rate.
Final thing, and by the way, they're here for you, 7th Avenue, Beaver Falls, the Middleman family, Enelow Shoes, all the gear you need to get into gear. So get over here and spend a little time with this great family. The last thing, you know who I think the Steelers should take a shot at if he's hanging around in the 3rd round? I like this Riley Leonard kid from Notre Dame.
I'm not a big fan of his.
I know, because they say he can't throw the ball, but he's 6'4".
Well, they also said the same thing about Lamar Jackson. I say the same thing, but Lamar Jackson, they said, couldn't throw the ball, and in the last year and a half, he's as good as any of them. He should be the MVP.
Yeah.
He should be.
And if he wins this game, with all due respect to Saquon and Josh and everything, even Patrick Mahomes, no. I love Lamar Jackson. I mean, I loved him in college. And even though he plays for our biggest rival, I love Coach Harbaugh. And I think Derrick Henry's a joy to watch, especially with that stiff arm. But because I have such love for the Buffalo Bills organization, look, I was in that living room at my grandma's when OJ broke the record. Mm-hmm. You know, I have such memories of that football team in the snow and the connection to Highmark Stadium. I mean, it's
you remember the couple 1-13 teams they had?
Oh, horrible. But
Dan Dara playing quarterback. I think Joe Collier was their coach, and he got really ticked after a loss. And they had a full scrimmage the next week, and Jack Kemp tore up his knee and missed the whole season.
The guy would become a congressman.
Mm-hmm. And they played Dan Dara and Ed Rutkowski, who also succeeded him as a congressman in Buffalo.
God, I don't know. But to go 4 times, you know, I met Jim Kelly one time in the newsroom at the old KDK in the Golden Triangle. He was there with Larry Richard. I remember shaking his hand. I was just so enamored to meet this guy and what he did for his son, obviously, and what he's done for the community and how he's beloved in Buffalo. And I just picture, this is my mindset, somebody in a bar in Buffalo on a wintry night, can't get a ticket for the games, got a cold beer, the neon light, big bucket of wings, and just hang and listening to somebody like you who knows sports just tell the story. That's what, to me, this is what football and sports is all about. They have up there now, in case you haven't watched the video yet, you got to check this out, clips from some of the greatest moments in Beaver County sports.
I listened to that from the radio.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
Bob,
I heard those. They're great.
You are so lucky to have that. But I told him I envision people, 11th Street, 7th Avenue, maybe living above the old 5 and Dime, you know, that radio by the kitchen stove, you know, having a little adult beverage or a cup of coffee with the ear at the radio speaker or looking into the speaker as though you could actually witness it. Those moments in time that live on forever. And like I told Stevie and Bob, you can attest to this, it goes by so quick. Like you beautiful grandsons and children I see you with, they grow.
They're grown up. What are you talking
right.
about?
And you think about your parents, your dad working here. I think about my mom and dad. They've been gone for decades now. It just goes so quickly, you know. So
You're talking about listening in the ear. Do you remember just walking along the streets in your neighborhood and all the people were sitting on their porch listening to the Pirates?
I could go from 1 yard to the next and not miss a pitch.
You didn't miss a play. You didn't miss a play because they all had the game on.
Well, what Stevie said, Coach Bruno, when he first came to town, he'd visit every merchant, shake their hand, say, on game night, turn your radios on as loud as you can. Stevie said you could walk down 7th Avenue and listen to the whole football game.
Yeah, we had them on every Friday night. We were open.
Listen, they even have a Chuck Wilson, the very first sports broadcast, 1949 WBVP. That's gold to have
Sure it
something
is.
like that.
Well, he was a legend here.
The only thing better, slightly better, is the bakery at Coons Market in Hopewell.
I'm going to stop there tonight.
Can I tell you something?
I stop there every time we eat at J.W. Hall's.
Listen, you make my night when I see those posts. I look forward to them and I love them. And I love what they can do for you. So hop on the pony trend again.
It's going to be there in March.
It's going to be here, baby. And he's going to have it
Basketball,
for
high
you.
top basketball shoes, low cuts, and turf shoes.
These are the coolest thing going. I remember when they first came out, I bought them and I wore them like as dress shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were cool. But imagine on a wintry day like today, you're out walking around, a little ice. The older you get, you don't want to slip.
People bought those to cut grass in.
Ooh, look at this.
Mm-hmm.
New era, Detroit.
There you go.
Has it always been Pittsburgh teams for you?
Yes,
Me too.
but I always liked the Indians. I liked the AFL. I rooted for all the AFL teams.
Back in the day.
Mhm.
Oakland Raiders.
They were pretty bad at first.
Listen, I
They-
go back to Hank Stram and Lenny Dawson. I mean,
Still see him with that rolled up newspaper.
you just gotta get it done. You just gotta get it done. Bob Middleman, Enelow Shoes.
One more thing
Yes.
before you were done.
Okay.
My grandson said, you mentioned the third round. My grandson mentioned today that they should take the quarterback from Ole Miss in the third round. Dart.
Ooh, boy, he's pretty smart, that young man.
I didn't watch Ole Miss play all year because I can't stand Lane Kiffin. I think he's a jerk. But
You heard it here first. Oh, good. But I love my Pitt Panthers.
so do I.
Everything.
One of these days.
All the sports, that place in Oakland, that university, the Cathedral of Irving, I don't know. I love it.
And Peter's Pub and the Wooden Keg and Cozy's and the Dirty O.
Listen, can you imagine if you lived like in an apartment or something? You're like 22 years old and you're just walking around like, 21 years old, 20 years old, going to school there and just hanging out after a football game.
Nobody ever left. You didn't need a car.
I love Oakland.
There would have never been any DUIs because no one ever left Oakland.
I'm telling you, when I retire, I'm going to move into a hotel room at the Oaklander, get my Post-Gazette, have some coffee in the morning, go work out, and just hang out and enjoy life, man. Go catch a college basketball game once in a while, compete, love it. Bob Middleman, you're not going to go anywhere and find a better selection and a better price, but more importantly, the knowledge. They've been doing it forever. And believe me, they know what they're doing. Don't forget, there's always more sports, 937thefan.com. And that Coons Market in Hopewell, those Coons Market sports reports, everything for the big football weekend, all the grub, the grab-and-go food, and of course, McKnight Road and Banksville Road, over 600 varieties of your favorite beers, microbrews, craft beers, and more. And I can tell it's a big football weekend. I drove by Eddie Shewalk's, Virginia Avenue, since 1950, and they had stacks of Miller Lite going out because there's going to be a lot of thirsty fans this weekend. Have a great night, everybody, and a great weekend. We'll see you in a couple of hours on the radio.
Thanks, Rob.